Hi there, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be a fairly brief video talking about the form of a good in-class writing. I know we've all come through different classes. We've had different teachers who told us different ways to do an in-class writing. What I'm going to show you is my way to do it. I found that it works pretty well. This is all based on analyzing actual student writings from American students here at universities. If you have a different way of doing it, let me know. I'm willing to listen and see if it works. But this is basically what I expect you to do. Alright, let's get into this here. The most important thing to remember when you're dealing with an in-class writing is this right here. You need to answer the question that you've been asked and do what it tells you to do. And make sure that you use the language of the question in the answer. I know these sound like very basic things, but this is what screws people up most commonly. Probably the other day on the initial pretest that we did in AEIS 112, you might have had a hard time answering the question simply because it was a difficult question. It could be interpreted two different ways. Because of that, some people did not do what the question asked them to do, and a lot of people did not use the language of the question in the answer. I'll tell you this though, if you do these things, that's enough to take care of most academic writing. If your grammar and form don't work very well, you can still get a passing grade if you make sure to do what the question asks you to do. Okay, when you're doing that though, here's the important thing to think about. You need to count the tasks you're being asked to do in the question, and you need to think about how to address them. Here's what that means. If the question asks you to do 3 things, you have to think about, well, okay, how am I going to address them? Are these big ideas or small ideas? Think of it like this. If you have a big idea in a question, it's going to need its own paragraph. If it's not a very big idea, if it's just sort of a detail, then you can try to put it inside a paragraph as part of the one piece of a paragraph. Here's what we mean by big ideas. Something like a theme meaning something that everything else will relate to, a main argument, or an important detail that's going to be discussed at length, meaning you're going to keep talking about it. Not so big ideas, just supporting details, things like quotations, statistics, a brief explanation, a date, a name of someone, a name of an author, etc. Okay, now I know that sounds somewhat confusing right now, but let's take a look at an actual question. Here it is. Should professors punish students who plagiarize? Please refer to the reading in your answer. Okay, well again, we need to remember a couple of things here. We want to answer the question and do what it tells you to do, and use the language of the question in the answer. We also want to make sure we count the tasks and think about how we're going to address them. So let's come back and take a look at this again. Should professors punish students who plagiarize? Well, here's one question. This looks like a yes or no question, so I'm going to need to make sure to answer that. That's just one thing to do, though. Should professors punish students who plagiarize? Yes or no? Okay, so I can answer that. But here we have another thing. Please refer to the reading in your answer. Aha! Well, what's the reading? In our case, I'm just going to be referring to the same reading we used in the first class. So it was written by a guy named Trip Gabriel in 2010. So we have 2 things we're being asked to do. We have to answer this question, and we have to refer to the reading in our answer. 2 things we're being asked to do. Now, the question is, are they both big ideas? Referring to a reading in an answer versus answering this question. Referring to a reading basically means make sure that you use a citation or make sure that you take some information from the reading. That's not a very big idea. That's something that can go inside the other question right here. That tells me something important. I have one big idea, one small idea right here. That means all I need is one paragraph. The reason I know I'm only going to need one paragraph is this. The basic form of an in-class writing is going to contain 4 very important parts and one other part that goes between 2 of the parts. You can just remember this basic form, SEEI. That stands for state, explain, evidence/example/explain, and then interpret/implications. Here's what that means. When we say state, this is where you're going to have a topic sentence. In your topic sentence, you're going to answer the question you've been asked directly. This is going to tell the reader about the main idea you're going to talk about. And again, we want to remember to use the language of the question. So if we take a look at an example, here's one. Is multitasking actually beneficial? One simple question, and again, it's a yes or no question. All right, and I have an answer here. Although it is although it is popular in many business textbooks and popular columns, multitasking is not actually beneficial. You know what? That's a bit too long. All we really need to do is this. Multitasking is not actually beneficial. Notice a couple of things. This is a direct answer to this question. Is multitasking actually beneficial? It's a very direct answer, and it's also maintaining most of the words from the actual question. Again, multitasking actually beneficial and is. All we've done is add one more word in there, not. That's what we mean by use the language of the question in the answer. So that's the first thing that goes in there. Okay, easy enough. If we come back to our example, should professors punish students who plagiarize? Please refer to the reading in your answer. We can try doing this right now. We can actually try answering the question. I see this sentence right here. Should professors punish students who plagiarize? Well, I have to decide what my answer is going to be. Just for the sake of argument, I'm going to say yes, because I'm an evil person and I like to punish students. I'm going to rearrange this so instead of a question, it's a statement. So I come here and I say, all right, professors should punish students who plagiarize. Boom, done. I've just answered the question. All right, it's a direct answer to it. I've maintained the same language of the question. I'm done with that part. Great. Now, I said before, this is going to be one paragraph. How do I know? Well, we need to come back here and keep looking at the rest of the pieces of an in-class writing to figure that out. The next piece is this, explain. And in this section, you're going to provide more details and explain your response a bit more. This is where you're going to clarify arguments, you're going to provide reasons, you're going to provide definitions, names, etc. So the example we looked at before is this. Multitasking is not actually beneficial. Okay? Let's take a look at a possible explanation of that. By performing many tasks at the same time, it may appear that more work is being done. However, in reality, either less work is being done or the work that is being done poorly. So what we've got right here is a reason that explains why I've got this answer. Okay, now right here I have 1, 2 sentences. That's it, 2 sentences. It doesn't have to be huge. Sometimes you can get away with 1 sentence. Let's see what we can do in our example here. Should professors punish students who plagiarize? Okay, my answer, yes. Professors should punish students who plagiarize. I'm going to try doing the same thing here. I'm going to provide a reason. Based on the reading that we had, I can think about it like this. Well, a lot of students do know that plagiarizing is wrong, and they choose to do it anyway because they're lazy. Okay, well, I'm going to put that in there. I'm going to use a transition that shows that it's a reason. This is due to the fact that although students know that plagiarism is not appropriate, they choose to do so simply because they do not want to expend the effort required to produce good work on their own. There we go. And in this case, 1 sentence, and it's explaining my reason for making this particular statement right here. Okay? Oh, we come back to that thing again. How do I know this is only going to be 1 paragraph? Well, now we're getting to that piece. We've already stated our answer. We've explained it a little bit. And now we come down to how I know that it's only going to be 1 paragraph. Aha, I even got a note right here. If a question asks you to make reference to the readings, do it here. Our section now is evidence/example/explain. Here's what that means. In this section, you're going to elaborate on the details you mentioned. You're going to provide evidence from readings, examples from real life, or hypothetical situations to do that. And very, very importantly, once you've done this, you will need to explain the evidence or examples that you provided. Specifically, what you're doing right here is you're providing a link. The The reason we call it a link is because we need to show how this evidence or these examples actually prove the point that we're making. All right, we have an example right here. If we take a look back at what we were looking at before, the first answer was multitasking is not beneficial. We explained it by saying that if you perform a lot of tasks at once, people think that you're doing more work, but in reality you're doing less work. Okay, so we've explained it. Now I need some proof about that. I need that evidence, and here we go. Since certain tasks require a lot of attention, performing 2 or more of them at once can lead to slower work. As Richmond 2009 notes, aha, and here we have our piece of gold, a citation, Richmond 2009. So here's where my evidence comes from. As Richmond notes, the strobe effect limits our ability to perform certain tasks, like naming shapes and reading words at the same time. Now I'm going to explain that a bit more. If a shape and a name are written together but they don't match, it takes a person longer to separate the information, and that might lead to mistakes. And now comes the last part. This is our link. Therefore, a person who is performing these 2 tasks will either take longer to do the job or do a worse job than someone who does the tasks separately. Basically coming back to what we said in the beginning, that if you do more than one job at once, if you multitask, it's going to take you a long time. So, what we have right there is some evidence. Here's a particular writer who told us that if you do 2 things at once, it's going to be bad. Okay, great. Let's come back to our example right here. Should professors punish students who plagiarize? Please refer to the reading in the answer. Well, we answered the question. Here it is. Professors should punish the students. Yes. Here's our reason. This is due to the fact that students know that plagiarism is not appropriate, but they choose to do so anyway. Okay, now this is the part where we're going to refer to the reading, that small idea. The person that wrote the article we read was Trip Gabriel, and he wrote his article in 2010. So one thing I can do right here is say, as Gabriel 2010 notes. And that's enough to say where I got my information. But what information do I want to use here? Well, let's see here. At the end of the article, there seemed to be a lot of discussion of students who knew that plagiarizing was not good. Sorry for the reprobates in the hallway. Students knew that plagiarism wasn't all that good, but they were doing it anyway and they didn't feel bad about it. Okay? So I can just take that and put it in here if I want to. So I can say many students who plagiarize are aware of the moral problem of their actions. I can simply say, Gabriel says that students who plagiarize are aware of these problems, but they simply don't care about the actions. They don't care that they're wrong. Now I need to explain this a little bit more. Okay, and what I get here is, since it is inappropriate for a teacher to allow students to do inappropriate things just because they don't care, it would be a bad idea for a professor to not punish students who plagiarize. Now I know this isn't the greatest answer ever. I just used the word inappropriate twice right in a row. That's too repetitive, but I'm doing this all on the fly right now. By doing that, I've provided a little bit of evidence, and I've explained it a little bit. That brings us down to the very last part of any kind of in-class writing, which is this, an interpretation or implications. This we'll talk a lot more about in class, but it's the tough section. In this section, you're going to talk about the meaning of whatever argument or information you just presented, specifically its importance in the real world. And that means you're going to be thinking about a couple of questions, such as these. What will the result of this be? If this argument or information were different, what would the result be? What will not happen because of this potentially? So here's one example of how we could do that with what we said before. Now, this was, again, talking about multitasking. Is it beneficial? No. Why? Because you don't do a good job. What's our evidence? Well, we got proof that says if we do more than one task at once, we do a worse job or it takes us longer. Okay, so then we have this. It is thus clear that multitasking has some clear negative consequences. Okay. By focusing on too many things at once, productivity decreases and the potential for problems increases. Aha. So that's basically saying, hey, if we do this, the negative result is this right here. I provided an example inside this where you can read through the whole thing all together. If we come back over here, though, we can see that we've kind of already done it. If we say, since it's inappropriate for a teacher to allow students to do bad things because they don't care, it would be bad for a professor to not punish the students. Okay, we've already talked about an implication right there. Now, if you notice, this isn't very big. It's pretty short. It's just one paragraph, like I said at the beginning. The important thing to remember here is how much time do you have? Do you have time to talk about everything? Do you have time to make sure you have an introduction, a conclusion, and 3 supporting details? No. If you're writing something on a midterm or a final, you're probably only going to have 10 minutes or so to actually write it. Most in-class writings are just going to be about 1 paragraph in length. All right, and that's basically it, ladies and gentlemen. I wish you good luck.